The warning lights flashed red across the control room. Commander Dongmin stared at the massive screen showing space around Earth. His coffee cup sat forgotten on the desk as he watched something that should not be possible. Ships. Hundreds of alien ships. They appeared out of nowhere, like ghosts becoming real. One moment, the space around Earth was empty except for human patrol boats and trade ships. The next moment, a fleet of alien warships filled the darkness. Dongmin had been in charge of Earth's orbital defense platform for 5 years. He had seen many things in space. Meteor showers, solar storms, even pirates attacking trade ships. But nothing like this. "Sir, we count 212 ships," said Lieutenant He Jin at the sensor station. Her voice shook as she spoke. "They are bigger than anything we have ever built." The alien ships moved in perfect formation. Each one was the size of a small city. Their hulls were black metal that seemed to drink in the starlight. Strange lights pulsed along their sides in patterns that hurt to look at. Dongmin's hands moved over his control panel. Earth's defense fleet was 15 ships. Good ships with brave crews, but they looked like toys next to the alien giants. "Get me Admiral Taeho," Dongmin said, "and patch me through to the diplomatic ship." The diplomatic vessel New Seoul floated between Earth and the alien fleet. It was humanity's first attempt at peaceful contact with another species. Ambassador Mi Young had been waiting for 3 months for the aliens to return after their first brief contact. Mi Young stood in the main communication room of her ship. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and gray hair. She had spent 20 years solving problems between different human nations. Now she faced something much bigger. "Ambassador," came Dongmin's voice over the radio. "The aliens have returned, with many, many ships." Mi Young nodded to her aide, Hyun-woo. He was young and nervous, but smart. "Open all channels," she said. "Let's see what they want to tell us." The main screen flickered. Then an alien face appeared. The creature was tall and thin, with skin like gray rock. Its eyes were black pools with no white parts. When it opened its mouth, Mi Young could see rows of sharp teeth. The translator made its voice sound like grinding. "Metal. I am War Prime Vextal of the Cathari Empire," the alien said. "You will listen." Mi Young felt her heart beating fast, but she kept her face calm. "I am Ambassador Mi Young, speaking for Earth and humanity. We are listening. Your species has spread to 3 star systems. You fight wars among yourselves. You build weapons and take resources from dead worlds. This shows you are dangerous." The alien's black eyes seemed to look right through the screen at Mi Young. "Dangerous species must be controlled. You will surrender your worlds to Cathari rule. You have 72 of your hours to decide." "And if we refuse?" Mi Young asked. "Then you will die. All of you. We have done this 47 times before. Other species choose surrender. They live as our servants. You may choose the same." The screen went black. Mi Young stood quiet for a moment. Around her, the communication room was silent except for the hum of computers. Finally, Hyun-woo spoke. "Ambassador, what do we do?" Before Mi Young could answer, Admiral Taeho's voice came over the radio. "All ships, prepare for battle stations. This is not a drill." Mi Young picked up the radio. "Admiral, wait." "Ambassador, with respect, this is a military matter now. They want to wipe us out." "No," Mi Young said slowly. "They want us to surrender. There is a difference." She looked at the star charts on the wall. Earth, Mars, the colonies on Europa and Titan. 4 billion humans spread across the solar system, all of them now at risk. "Hyun-woo, get me everything we know about these Cathari. Language patterns, ship designs, anything." The young man's fingers flew over his computer. They made contact 3 months ago. Very brief. They said they would return to evaluate us. Their language is complex, but follows strict patterns. Very formal, very structured. Mi Young studied the data. The Cathari spoke like soldiers. Everything was about rank and order, but something bothered her about their message. They said 47 other species surrendered, she said. Not that they destroyed 47 species. They want subjects, not corpses. Does that help us? Hyun-woo asked. Maybe. Mi Young walked to the window that looked out at the alien fleet. The ships hung in space like dark stars. They respect strength. But what kind of strength? Admiral Taeho's voice came over the radio again. Ambassador, President So-young wants to speak with you. The president's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired and worried. Mi Young, the military says we should evacuate the colonies. Get as many people as possible to Earth and prepare for siege. That won't work, Mi Young said. Their ships are too fast, too powerful. If they want to destroy us, running won't help. Then what do you suggest? Mi Young was quiet for a long moment. An idea was forming in her mind. It was crazy. It was dangerous. But it might be their only chance. I want to meet with their war prime. Face to face. President So-young's eyes widened. Are you insane? They just threatened to kill us all. They gave us a choice. Surrender or die. That means they follow some kind of rules, some kind of honor system. Mi Young turned from the window. What if we offer them a different choice? What do you mean? They respect strength. They've conquered 47 species who all chose surrender over death. But what if we choose something else? What if we choose to prove our strength instead of just giving up? Hyun-woo looked up from his computer. Ambassador, they have ships that could destroy our entire fleet in minutes. Yes, but they didn't attack right away. They gave us time to think. That means something. Mi Young sat down at her desk. Send a message to War Prime Vextal. Tell him Ambassador Mi Young requests a meeting to discuss terms. Terms of surrender? President So-young asked. No, Mi Young said with a small smile. Terms of choice. Give us a choice and we'll give them one in return. The message went out across space to the alien fleet. For 2 hours, there was no response. Then the communication system activated. War Prime Vextal's face appeared on the screen again. You wish to surrender formally? I wish to discuss options, Mi Young said. Your people value strength. We would like to demonstrate ours. The alien was quiet for a long moment. His black eyes studied Mi Young's face. This is unusual. Explain. Meet with me, one diplomat to another. Let me show you that humanity offers something different than the 47 species who came before. Another long pause. Then Vextal spoke. You may come to our ship. Bring one aid. Any attempt at attack will result in immediate destruction of your species. Understood, Mi Young said. When? Now. The screen went black again. Mi Young stood up and straightened her uniform. Hyun-woo stared at her. Ambassador, you're really going over there? Yes. She picked up her briefcase with all their research on alien contact. Someone has to try something different. Maybe it's time these Cathari learned that not all species think the same way. As the shuttle prepared to take them to the alien ship, Mi Young looked back at Earth one more time. Blue and white and beautiful, hanging in the dark, home to billions of people who were counting on her to find another way. The shuttle engine started. In 30 minutes, she would be face to face with creatures who could destroy her entire species with a word. But maybe, just maybe, she could convince them not to. The shuttle felt very small as it moved toward the alien mothership. Mi Young sat in the pilot's seat with Hyun-woo beside her. Through the front window, the Cathari vessel grew larger and larger until it filled their entire view. The ship was enormous. It stretched for kilometers in every direction. The hull was made of some black metal that seemed to swallow light. Strange symbols glowed along its surface in patterns that made Mi Young's eyes water if she looked too long. "Incoming transmission," Hyun-woo said. His voice was tight with fear. A mechanical voice came through their radio. "Human shuttle, follow the guide beam to Docking Bay 7. Any deviation will result in destruction." A blue beam of light appeared in front of their shuttle. Mi Young followed it through a maze of weapon platforms and sensor arrays. Each gun was bigger than their entire ship. The docking bay was huge and cold. Their shuttle looked like a toy sitting on the metal floor. As soon as they landed, a force field sealed the bay entrance. The air around them glowed with scanning beams. "They're checking us for weapons," Hyun-woo said, reading his instruments. "Good thing we didn't bring any," Mi Young replied. She had made that choice carefully. Weapons would only make the aliens angry, and they had enough firepower to destroy Earth's entire fleet anyway. The airlock opened with a hiss. 4 Cathari soldiers entered the shuttle. They were tall, at least 7 feet high, with gray skin that looked like stone. They wore black armor that covered most of their bodies. The only parts Mi Young could see were their faces and hands. Their faces were the worst part. No nose, just slits where nostrils should be. Black eyes with no pupils that Mi Young could see. And when they opened their mouths, rows of sharp teeth like a shark. The lead soldier spoke in their language. The translator turned his words into flat, emotionless English. "You will come. No sudden movements, no loud sounds. Follow exactly." Mi Young and Hyun-woo followed the soldiers through corridors that stretched on forever. The walls were the same black metal as the outside of the ship. Everything was lit by cold white lights that hurt their eyes. They passed rooms full of computers that hummed with energy. They saw weapon systems that could probably destroy a city. Everything was clean and perfect and terrifying. The soldiers moved in perfect step. They never looked around or spoke to each other. They walked like machines programmed for one task. After 10 minutes of walking, they reached a large door. It opened without sound, revealing a room that took Mi Young's breath away. The chamber was huge, with a ceiling that disappeared into shadows. The walls were covered with screens showing star maps and ship positions. In the center of the room sat a chair that looked more like a throne. War Prime Vextal sat in the chair. He was bigger than the soldiers, almost 8 feet tall. His armor was more decorated, with symbols that glowed with their own light. When he stood up, Mi Young felt very small. "Ambassador Mi Young," he said. His voice came through speakers built into the walls. "You are smaller than expected." "Most humans are," Mi Young replied. She walked to the center of the room, forcing herself not to show fear. "Thank you for agreeing to meet. This is highly irregular. In 47 conquests, no species has requested a meeting after receiving surrender terms." Vextal stepped down from his throne. Each footstep echoed in the huge room. "Explain your purpose." Mi Young opened her briefcase and took out a data pad. "First, I'd like to understand your people better. You mentioned 47 other species. How did those meetings go?" Vextal's black eyes studied her. They surrendered immediately, as is proper when faced with superior force. All of them? No one tried to fight? Fighting would be pointless. Our technology is superior. Our ships are stronger. Resistance would only lead to unnecessary death. Vextal gestured to the screens around the room. We are efficient. We do. Not destroy what can be useful. Mi-young nodded slowly. So you rule these 47 species now? They serve the Empire. They provide resources and labor. In return, they are protected and fed. Do they fight for you? In your armies? For the first time, Vextal paused. They perform support functions, guard duties, supply management. But not frontline combat? That would not be efficient. Mi-young made a note on her data pad. She was starting to understand something important. War Prime. May I ask about your own species? How did the Cathari become so powerful? We evolved on a harsh world. Only the strong survived. We learned that might makes right. The weak serve the strong. This is natural law. And in your society, how does someone become War Prime? Through combat, through proving superiority over rivals. Vextal's chest swelled with pride. I defeated 12 challengers to reach this rank. So strength is everything to your people? Strength is the only thing that matters. Mi-young walked slowly around the room, looking at the screens and weapons. Hyun-woo stayed close behind her, trying to stay calm. War Prime, you said resistance to your conquest would be pointless. But what if the resistance wasn't about winning or losing? What if it was about something else? Explain. You've conquered 47 species. All of them chose surrender over death. That makes sense if survival is the most important thing. But what if a species valued something more than survival? Vextal tilted his head. Nothing is more important than survival. Freedom? Honor? The right to choose one's own path? Those are concepts for the weak. The strong take what they want. Mi-young stopped walking and turned to face the alien leader. Then you've never met a species that chose death over slavery? No, species is that foolish. Humans might be. Mi-young's voice was steady and calm. We have a saying, give me liberty or give me death. We've fought wars against our own species for the right to be free. We've died in millions to protect our way of life. Vextal was quiet for a long moment. You threaten suicide rather than surrender? I'm not threatening anything. I'm explaining that humans see strength differently than you do. You think strength means having bigger guns and faster ships. We think strength means choosing to fight even when you know you'll lose. That is not strength. That is madness. Is it? Mi-young opened her datapad and showed Vextal pictures from human history. These are from our wars. Humans fighting other humans. See this battle? 300 soldiers held off 10,000 enemies for 3 days. They all died, but they saved their city. Vextal studied the images. They accomplished nothing. They died for no gain. They died for choice, the choice to resist rather than submit, the choice to fight for their beliefs. Mi-young closed the datapad. War Prime, you respect strength. You value victory in combat. I propose we test our strength against yours. Your ships against our ships? That would be over in minutes. Not ships. A different kind of test. Your people have traditions of single combat, correct? Challenges between warriors? Yes. How do you know this? We studied your first contact messages. Your language patterns suggest a culture based on personal, combat, and individual strength. Mi-young sat down in a chair across from Vextal's throne. I propose 3 trials: mind, body, and will. Trials. Your best against our best. 3 different types of strength. If we win, you leave our space and never return. If you win, we surrender with full honors. Vextal stood very still. The room was silent except for the hum of computers. Finally, he spoke. This is unprecedented, because no one ever offered you a real challenge before? The other species gave up without trying. They never tested their strength against yours. They just assumed you were stronger and surrendered. Mi-young leaned forward. War Prime, you conquered 47 species, but did you really defeat them? Or did they defeat themselves? Vextal's eyes narrowed. Explain. True victory comes from beating an enemy who fights back with everything they have. What honor is there in conquering those who surrender without a battle? The alien leader walked back to his throne and sat down. He was thinking hard. Mi-young could see the conflict in his alien features. These trials you propose, what would they prove? That humans are worth something more than slavery. That we have a strength your other subjects lack. Mi-young stood up. War Prime, you lead a great empire built on conquest. But what happens when there's no one left to conquer? What happens when your subjects are all slaves who obey from fear instead of respect? We continue to expand. There are always more worlds. Are there? And when you've conquered the entire galaxy, then what? Rule over billions of creatures who hate you and dream of freedom? Mi-young picked up her briefcase. Or you could try something new. Test your strength against willing opponents. See if your empire is as powerful as you think. Vextal was quiet for a very long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, less certain. If I agreed to these trials, and if your species somehow won, you would ask us to leave? We would ask you to leave us alone. But we might also offer you something else. What? Alliance. Partnership between equals instead of masters and slaves. Mi-young smiled. War Prime, wouldn't you rather have allies who choose to fight with you than subjects who serve only because they have to? The room fell silent again. Vextal stared at Mi-young with his black, unreadable eyes. Finally, he stood up. I will consider your proposal. Return to your ship. You will have an answer in 6 hours. As the soldiers escorted them back to their shuttle. 6 hours later, War Prime Vextal's message came through to the diplomatic ship. Mi-young sat in her command chair, trying to stay calm while her heart pounded. Ambassador Mi-young, Vextal's voice came through the speakers. The Cathari High. Command has discussed your proposal. We find it interesting. We accept your challenge trials. Mi-young felt relief wash over her, followed immediately by fear. They had bought humanity some time, but now they had to prove they were worth it. We are honored by your acceptance, War Prime. What are the terms? 3 trials, as you suggested. Mind, body, and will. Each side will choose 1 champion for each trial. The trials will be fair and observed by both our fleets. Vextal paused. But understand this, Ambassador. If your champions fail, humanity will surrender completely. No further negotiations. Understood. When do we begin? The first trial starts in 12 hours. Choose your champions wisely. The communication ended. Mi-young immediately opened a channel to Earth. President So-young, we have 12 hours to find 3 people who can save our species. The next few hours were chaos. Messages flew between Earth, Mars, and the colonies. Military leaders, scientists, athletes, and scholars all submitted names. Everyone had an opinion about who should represent humanity. For the trial of mind, the choice came down to 2 candidates: General Han Sol, Earth's greatest military strategist, or Sung Min, a 26-year-old game designer who had created some of the most complex strategy simulations ever made. "I vote for the general," Admiral Tejo said over the communication link. "He has real combat experience." "But he thinks like a human fighting other humans," Mi-young replied. "Sung Min has studied alien psychology and unconventional warfare. He thinks outside normal patterns." President So-young made the final decision. "Sung Min, if we're going to surprise them, we need someone who thinks differently." For the trial of body, they chose Jin Su, a former Special Forces soldier who now worked as an asteroid miner. He was not the strongest or fastest human, but he was smart and tough and knew how to survive in space. The trial of will was the hardest choice. They needed someone who could endure anything without breaking. After much debate, they selected Yun Hee, a doctor who had lost her family in the colonial wars but continued to save lives every day. The trials would take place over 3 days. Each test would be broadcast to both fleets so everyone could see the results. The first trial began on the Cathari flagship. Sung Min stood in a huge chamber filled with holographic displays. The walls, floor, and ceiling could show any environment the computers could create. His opponent was Kelnus, a Cathari strategic commander who had planned the conquest of 15 worlds. The alien was tall and thin like all his species, but his eyes held a sharp intelligence. "The trial is simple," War Prime Vextal announced to both fleets. "Each commander will control simulated forces in battle. The winner is the one who achieves complete victory or forces the opponent to surrender." The holographic battlefield appeared around them. It showed a star system with 3 planets, asteroid fields, and space stations. Each commander had identical fleets to control. Kelnus moved first, sending his ships in a massive formation toward the center of the system. It was a classic Cathari strategy. Overwhelming force applied directly to the enemy's strongest point. Sung Min watched the alien fleet advance, then began moving his own ships. But instead of meeting the attack head-on, he scattered his forces throughout the system. "Your human fights like a coward," one of the Cathari officers said. Vextal said nothing, but his eyes followed every move on the display. Kelnus pressed. His attack, chasing Sung Min's scattered ships with superior numbers. Every time the alien forces cornered a human group, they found only a small force that ran away after a brief fight. "Stand and fight," Kelnus commanded through the simulation. Sung Min smiled and continued his hit-and-run tactics. While the main Cathari fleet chased shadows, small human forces attacked supply lines and captured undefended positions. 3 hours into the battle, Kelnus controlled most of the star system, but his fleet was scattered and running low on supplies. Sung Min's forces were smaller, but still organized. Then Sung Min made his real move. While Kelnus was busy conquering empty space stations, the human commander gathered his remaining ships into 3 small fleets. Each group attacked a different planet where the alien had left only light defenses. "Impossible," Kelnus said. "You cannot win with such small forces." "I'm not trying to win," Sung Min replied calmly. "I'm trying to make you lose." The human fleets reached the planets at the same time. They were outnumbered, but they had surprise and determination. On the holographic display, desperate battles raged around all three worlds. Kelna sent his main fleet to save the planets, but they were too far away. He could save one world, maybe two, but not all three. Then Sungmin did something that shocked everyone watching. His fleet, attacking the first planet, suddenly turned and launched themselves directly at the defending ships. It was a suicide attack that destroyed both forces completely. "What are you doing?" Kelnus demanded. "Winning," Sungmin said. With the first planet's defenders gone, Sungmin's second fleet captured it easily. Then that fleet also sacrificed itself to help the third group take the second planet. By the time Kelnas arrived with his main force, Sungmin controlled 2 planets with only a handful of ships left. According to the rules, controlling 2 out of 3 planets meant victory. "But you destroyed most of your own forces," Kelnas protested. "Yes, you killed more of my ships, but I achieved the objective." Sungmin looked at the alien commander. "Sometimes the best strategy is to lose everything except what matters most." Kelna stared at the display, unable to understand how he had lost with superior numbers. His strategy was perfect by Kethari standards, but it had failed completely. Against human thinking, War Prime Vextal announced the result. The trial of mind goes to humanity. The second trial took place in an asteroid field between the 2 fleets. It was a test of physical ability, survival skills, and adaptability. Jinsu floated in his spacesuit near a large asteroid. His opponent was Morthak, a Kethari warrior who stood 8 feet tall and could probably break Jinsu in half with his bare hands. "The trial is a hunt," Vextal explained. "Both warriors will be placed in the asteroid field with basic equipment. The winner is the one who finds and defeats the other." Jinsu checked his equipment: a basic spacesuit, a small oxygen tank, a repair kit, and a short-range communicator. No weapons. The Kethari had the same gear, but Morthak was bigger, stronger and faster than any human. The asteroids around them were a maze of rocks and ice. Some were as big as mountains, others as small as cars. All of them were dangerous if you hit them wrong. "Begin," Vextal commanded. Morthak immediately activated his suit's thrusters and began searching the asteroid field in a grid pattern. He moved with military precision, checking each rock systematically. Jinsu took a different approach. Instead of searching, he found a medium-sized asteroid and landed on it. Then he began breaking off pieces of ice and metal debris. For 2 hours, Morthak searched while Jinsu worked on his asteroid. The alien was getting frustrated. His systematic search should have found the human by now. Finally, Morthak spotted movement near a large asteroid cluster. He activated his thrusters and moved to investigate. As he approached, small pieces of debris began bouncing off his suit. At first, he ignored them, thinking it was just normal asteroid dust. Then, larger pieces started hitting him. "What is this?" Morthak said over his communicator. "Mining," Jinsu replied from somewhere in the asteroid field. More debris pelted the alien warrior. Some pieces were sharp enough to scratch his visor. Others hit hard enough to knock him off course. Morthak tried to locate the source of the Boer attack, but the debris was coming from multiple directions. Jinsu had spent 2 hours setting up a complex system of ricochets and traps throughout the asteroid field. Every time Morthak moved toward what he thought was Jinsu's position, more objects came flying at him from different angles. The human was using the asteroids themselves as weapons. "Fight me directly, coward!" Morthak shouted. "Why?" Jinsu asked. "You're bigger and stronger than me, but I know how to use tools." A large chunk of ice hit Morthak's oxygen tank, damaging the valve. He could still breathe, but his air was leaking slowly. The alien warrior tried a direct assault, using his thrusters to blast through the debris field toward where he thought Jin-Soo was hiding. But when he reached the spot, he found only an empty spacesuit tethered to an asteroid. "Decoy," Jin-Soo said from behind him. Morthak spun around, but Jin-Soo was already moving again, using a cable to swing between asteroids like some kind of space acrobat. Another volley of debris hit the alien. This time, several pieces struck his thruster pack, damaging it. Now he could barely maneuver. "This is not honorable combat," Morthak protested. "This is survival," Jin-Soo replied. "In space, the environment is more dangerous than any enemy. If you can't use it as a tool, it will kill you." For the next hour, Jin-Soo continued his hit-and-run tactics. He used everything in the asteroid field: ice chunks, metal fragments, even gravity from the larger rocks. Morthak grew more and more frustrated as his equipment was slowly damaged. Finally, the alien warriors damaged. Yoon-hee stood in the center of a circular chamber aboard the Cathari flagship. The walls were covered with sensors and devices she did not recognize. Across from her, Renkal waited with the stillness of a statue. The Cathari champion was different from the others she had seen. Where most aliens moved with military precision, Renkal seemed to flow like water. His eyes were closed, and his breathing was perfectly controlled. War Prime Vextal stood on a platform above them. Both fleets watched through their screens as he explained the final trial. The trial of will tests the most important quality a warrior can possess: the ability to endure without breaking. Both champions will face increasing levels of pain, fear, and psychological pressure. The first to surrender loses everything. Yoon-hee looked up at the observation windows where human and alien officers watched. She thought about her husband Jae-woo waiting on Earth, not knowing if he would ever see her again. She thought about her children who had died 3 years ago. "Are you ready, human?" Renkal asked. His voice was calm and emotionless. "As ready as anyone can be," Yoon-hee replied. "Begin," Vextal commanded. The first test was simple physical pain. Devices attached to their arms delivered electric shocks that started small and grew stronger. Both champions stood quietly as the pain increased. Yoon-hee had expected this. She had delivered babies without pain medication. She had performed surgery on wounded soldiers while bombs fell around her. Pain was an old enemy she knew how to fight. But Renkal showed no reaction at all. The alien had been trained from childhood to ignore physical discomfort. His face remained perfectly calm even as the shocks grew stronger. After 30 minutes, the electric pain stopped. Both champions had passed the first test. "Phase 2, Vextal announced. Now the chamber filled with sounds designed to cause fear and panic. Screaming voices, breaking glass, explosions, and the cries of wounded animals. The volume increased until the noise was almost unbearable. Yoon-hee closed her eyes and concentrated on her breathing. She had worked in emergency rooms during the worst disasters Earth had ever seen. She had heard every kind of terrible sound a human could make. Renkal remained motionless. The Cathari had no equivalent to human emotional responses to sound. What would terrify a human meant nothing to him. But then the sounds changed. Instead of random noise, the chamber began playing recordings of Cathari commanders giving orders. Military commands, status reports, and disciplinary actions. For the first time, Renkal showed a reaction. His breathing quickened slightly, and sweat appeared on his gray skin. Yun-hee noticed the change and filed it away in her mind. The alien was affected by his own authority structure in ways that human chaos could not touch. The sound test ended. After an hour, both champions had survived, but Yun-hee could see that Ren-Kal was no longer completely calm. Phase 3, Vextal said. Psychological pressure. This was what Yun-hee had feared most. The chamber's walls came alive with moving images and voices that spoke directly into their minds. The Kethari technology could project thoughts and memories, forcing the champions to relive their worst experiences. Yun-hee suddenly found herself back on the transport ship 3 years ago. She could smell the smoke and feel the heat of the fires. She could hear her children calling for her as the pirates broke through the hull. The memory was so real that she gasped and stepped backward. Her daughter, Min-ah, appeared in front of her, reaching out with small hands. "Mommy, help me," the image said. "Why didn't you save us?" Tears ran down Yun-hee's face, but she forced herself to speak. "Because I couldn't. I tried, but I wasn't strong enough." "You failed us," her son Wu-jin said, appearing beside his sister. "We died because you were weak." "Yes," Yun-hee said quietly. "I failed you. I live with that every day." The images of her children began to fade, but Yun-hee continued speaking to them. "But maybe I can save other children now. Maybe your deaths can mean something if I don't give up." Across the chamber, Ren-Kal was fighting his own battle. The alien technology was forcing him to relive moments of submission to superior officers. Images of Kethari commanders giving him orders, punishing him for mistakes, demanding absolute obedience. But something was wrong. The images began to change, showing scenarios that had never happened. Ren-Kal being ordered to surrender, being commanded to show weakness, being told to submit to inferior beings. The alien warrior began to shake. His entire culture was based on strength and hierarchy. The idea of being ordered to be weak was something his mind could not process. "Submit," a voice in his head commanded. "Surrender to the humans. Admit that you are inferior." "No," Ren-Kal said through gritted teeth. That cannot be." "It is an order from your superiors. You must obey." Ren-Kal fell to his knees, clutching his head. The psychological attack was using his own conditioning against him. His training demanded that he obey orders, but the orders were telling him to be weak. Yun-hee watched the alien suffer and felt something unexpected. Pity. She walked across the chamber and knelt beside him. "It's not real," she said gently. "The voices in your head are not your commanders. They're just machines designed to break us." Ren-Kal looked up at her with confused eyes. "You help me? But we are enemies." "We are both in pain," Yun-hee replied. "And I am a doctor. I help people in pain. This shows weakness. You should use my confusion to win." Yun-hee smiled sadly. "Maybe, but winning by watching someone suffer when I could help, that would make me no better than the people who killed my children." The psychological attack continued, but something had changed. Ren-Kal began to understand that strength could come from choosing to help rather than choosing to hurt. "Your offspring," he said slowly. "The images showed them dying. This causes you pain? Every day. Yet you continue to function, to help others. How? Because giving up would dishonor their memory. They died because someone decided their lives didn't matter. If I can prevent that from happening to other children, then their deaths have meaning. Renkal was quiet for a moment. Among my people, the weak exist only to serve the strong. There is no meaning in their sacrifice. Then your people have never learned what real strength is. The alien looked at her with new understanding. You endure not because you must, but because you choose to. Every moment of every day, the psychological attacks intensified, but now Yun-hee and Renkal faced them together. When the machines tried to break Yun-hee with images of her failures, she spoke about the patience she had saved. When they tried to break Renkal with impossible orders, he remembered that choice could be stronger than obedience. Finally, after 4 hours of psychological torture, something unexpected happened. Renkal stood up and spoke to the chamber. I surrender. The room fell silent. War Prime Vextal stared down at his champion in shock. You surrender to the human? No, Renkal said calmly. I surrender to the test. I cannot continue to participate in something designed only to cause suffering. But the trial is wrong. Renkal looked up at his commander. This human has shown me that true strength comes from choosing to endure for others, not from following orders without question. Vexatal's face showed emotions that Yun-hee had never seen in a Cathari before. Confusion, anger, and something that might have been fear. This is unprecedented, the War Prime said slowly. Yun-hee stood up and faced the observation platform. War Prime Vextal, the trials are complete. Humanity has won. Yes, Vextal replied quietly. You have won. But I am not certain what you have won. The right to remain free, the right to choose our own path. And what of my people? What of the Cathari Empire? Yun-hee looked at Renkal, who nodded encouragingly. That depends on what you choose to do next, War Prime. You came here to conquer the weak. You found something different. We found humans who fight like madmen and show mercy to their enemies, Vextal said. We found warriors who sacrifice themselves for victory and doctors who heal their opponents. We do not understand your species. Then maybe it's time to learn, Yun-hee suggested. Maybe it's time for your empire to try something besides conquest. The chamber was silent except for the hum of machinery. Throughout both fleets, humans and aliens watched their screens and waited to see what would happen next. War Prime Vextal stood on his platform, looking down at the small human woman who had just changed everything he thought he knew about strength and weakness. Dr. Yun-hee, he said finally, your people have won the right to remain free, but you have also given my people something to think about, something we have never considered before. What is that? The possibility that strength and compassion are not opposites. That choice can be more powerful than force. Vextal paused. I must consult with my commanders. Return to your ships. We will speak again soon. As Yun-hee and Renkal were escorted back to the human shuttle, the alien warrior spoke quietly. Doctor, when your people offered these trials, did you expect to win? Honestly? No. I thought we would probably lose. Then why did you try? Yun-hee smiled. Because trying was a choice. And sometimes the most important thing is not whether you win or lose, but that you chose to try. Renkal nodded slowly. I think I am beginning to understand humans. Good, Yun-hee replied, because I think your people are about to have some very difficult decisions to make. The next 12 hours were the longest in human history, Both fleets hung in space, watching each other across the dark. No one spoke. No one moved. Everyone waited for War Prime Vextal to make his decision. Ambassador Mi Young sat in her command chair aboard the diplomatic ship, staring at the alien fleet through the main screen. She had done everything she could think of. Now the fate of humanity rested in the hands of creatures she barely understood. Ambassador, Hyunwoo said quietly. Incoming transmission from the Kethari flagship. Mi-young straightened her uniform and nodded. Put it through. War Prime Vextal's face appeared on the screen, but he looked different than before. The absolute confidence was gone. His black eyes showed uncertainty, and something that might have been confusion. Ambassador Mi-young, he said, I have consulted with my high command. Your trials have created difficulties. What kind of difficulties? Questions. Questions that my people have never had to consider before. Vextal paused. In 47 conquests, we have never encountered resistance like yours. Not military resistance, that we could understand and defeat, but resistance of the mind, resistance of the spirit. Mi-young leaned forward. War Prime, your people won the trials fairly. According to our agreement, humanity will surrender. No, Vextal said, surprising everyone. That is the problem. You won the trials, but winning has created more questions than answers. Behind Vextal, Mi-young could see other Kethari officers. They looked agitated, speaking in their harsh language with quick, angry gestures. My commanders are divided, Vextal continued. Some say we should ignore the trial results and attack immediately. They believe humans are too dangerous to leave unconquered. And the others? Others point out that your species has demonstrated capabilities we do not possess. Strategic thinking we cannot predict. Tactical flexibility we cannot match. Psychological strength we cannot understand. Vextal's voice grew quieter. They ask why we would want to destroy such capabilities instead of learning from them. Mi-young felt a spark of hope. What do you think, War Prime? I think. Vextal stopped and seemed to consider his words carefully. I think your species has shown me that the Kethari Empire may not be as strong as we believed. What do you mean? We have conquered 47 species. All of them surrendered immediately when faced with superior force. We believed this proved our strength, but your trials have shown us something else. Vextal stood up from his command chair and began pacing. Your champion Sungmin defeated our greatest strategist, using tactics we had never seen. Not because he was stronger, but because he thought differently. Yes. Your champion Jin Su defeated our greatest warrior not through superior strength, but through superior adaptation to his environment. That's correct. And your champion Yoon-hee, Vextal paused. She did something that broke our understanding completely. She helped her opponent while competing against him. She showed strength through compassion. Mi-young nodded. Those are all human traits, War Prime. Yes. And they are traits that none of our subject species possess. Vextal stopped pacing and looked directly at the screen. Ambassador, I must ask you a question that shames me to speak. Go ahead. How many of our 47 subject species would fight for the Kethari Empire if they had a choice? Mi-young considered the question carefully. I don't know, War Prime. How many of them chose to serve you rather than being forced to serve you? None. All were conquered. All serve because they must. Then I would guess that very few would fight for you if they could choose otherwise. Vextal was quiet for a long moment. That is what I feared you would say. And that is the source of our difficulty. I don't understand. The Cathari Empire controls hundreds of worlds and billions of subjects. But if our strength comes only from fear, what happens when we face an enemy that does not fear us? Mi-young began to see where this was leading. You're worried about other species like humanity. Yes. Your people have shown us that there may be others who will not surrender simply because we are stronger. Others who will fight and think and adapt in ways we cannot predict. Vextal sat back down. The Empire has built its power on a foundation that may not be as solid as we thought. So, what do you propose to do about it? That is what we have been debating for 12 hours. Some of my commanders want to destroy humanity before word of these trials spreads to our subject worlds. They fear that others might begin to think about resistance. And you disagree? I think destroying you would be a waste. Your species has abilities that could benefit the Empire greatly, but not as subjects, as something else. Mi-young felt her heart beating faster. What do you mean? Before I answer that, I must ask you another question. When you proposed these trials, you said if humanity won, we would leave your space. But you also mentioned another possibility. Alliance. Yes. Explain what you meant by that. Mi-young took a deep breath. This was the moment she had been hoping for since the first alien ship appeared. War Prime. Your empire is built on conquest and submission. That makes you very powerful, but it also makes you predictable. Every strategy you use is based on overwhelming force applied directly. This is true. But what if you had allies who thought differently? What if your empire included species that contributed new ideas instead of just following orders? Vextal leaned forward. Continue. Humans could teach your people about unconventional warfare, about adaptation and innovation, about finding strength in diversity instead of uniformity. Mi-young paused. And in return, your people could teach us about technology and organization and the discipline that comes from clear hierarchy. You propose partnership? Between equals? Why not? Your people respect strength. We've proven our strength, not with bigger guns, but with different ways of thinking and fighting. Behind Vextal, the Cathari officers were listening intently. Some looked angry, but others seemed interested. This would be unprecedented, Vextal said slowly. Good. Unprecedented means new, and new means growth. Mi-young stood up. War Prime, you control an empire of subjects who obey because they have to. We're offering you something different, allies who choose to work with you because they want to. And what would humanity gain from such an arrangement? Protection, technology, access to the galaxy, and the chance to help other species find alternatives to conquest or death. Vextal was quiet for several minutes. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Less formal, more thoughtful. Ambassador, there is something else, something I have not told you. What is it? The Cathari Empire is not the only power in this galaxy. There are others, some even more aggressive than we are, some that do not offer conquered species the choice to serve. Mi-young felt a chill. You mean there are species that just destroy everything they encounter? Yes. We have avoided them because we are strong, but not strong enough to fight them directly. They use tactics and technologies we do not understand. And you think humanity might be able to help with that? Your species has shown an ability to think in ways that confuse even us. Perhaps you could develop strategies that would confuse them as well. Mi Young was beginning to understand the full scope of what Vextal was offering. You're not just talking about an alliance between our species. You're talking about changing how your entire empire operates. Perhaps, if such a thing is possible. It's possible, Mi Young said confidently, but it would require trust. Real trust. Not the kind of relationship you have with your subject species. Explain. Your subjects obey because they fear punishment. Allies work together because they share goals. That means sometimes disagreeing with each other, sometimes having arguments, sometimes making decisions together instead of following orders. Vextal looked back at his officers. Several of them were speaking rapidly in their language. Finally, he turned back to the screen. Ambassador Mi Young, I am going to make an offer that will either transform the Cathari Empire or destroy my career. I'm listening. We propose a trial alliance. 1 year. During that time, human representatives will work with Cathari commanders to develop new strategies and technologies. In return, we will provide protection for human space and share selected technologies. And after 1 year, if the alliance proves beneficial, we will offer the same arrangement to other species, not as conquerors, but as potential partners. Vextal paused. It may be that the Empire's future lies not in ruling the galaxy, but in leading it. Mi Young felt tears in her eyes. War Prime, are you offering to help other species find alternatives to conquest or surrender? I am offering to try. Your people have shown us that strength takes many forms. Perhaps it is time for the Cathari to learn new forms of strength. And if your High Command disagrees with this alliance, then I will face the consequences. But I have seen what happens when a species chooses death over slavery. I do not wish to see it again. Mi Young looked at Hyun Woo, who was staring at the screen in amazement. Then she looked back at Vextal. War Prime, humanity accepts your proposal for a trial alliance. Excellent. I will withdraw my fleet from human space immediately. Diplomatic ships will remain to begin negotiations. War Prime. Thank you. Do not thank me yet, Ambassador. We are attempting something that has never been tried before. It may fail. Maybe. But we're choosing to try.